Una de las claves para ser un inversionista exitoso es asegurarse de tener un grupo de personas que te acuerpan en cada transacción para que esa transacción se vuelva una transacción exitosa. Eso puede ser desde tener los realtors correctos hasta tener las personas que te hacen los libros correctos, tener los contratistas correctos. Una de las piezas claves en cada transacción de real estate es la casa de título o compañía de título. La compañía de título puede arruinarte un buen deal, te puede arruinar una oportunidad de hacer mucho dinero. Es por eso que en este episodio nosotros nos sentamos con una dueña de una compañía de título que de hecho es la compañía de título que nosotros personalmente usamos y ella es la escrow officer que nosotros usamos en cada transacción. Para que una transacción de real estate sea exitosa necesitas un grupo de personas que sepan hacer su trabajo bien, y una compañía de título, si no sabe hacer su trabajo bien, va a arruinarte muchas oportunidades de hacer dinero. Así que en este video nos sentamos con Jamie Ellis. Jamie Ellis es la co-dueña o co-owner de WG Title, que es la compañía es la casa de título que nosotros usamos en todas nuestras transacciones. Nos sentamos con Jamie y le hicimos todas las preguntas que tú como inversionista debes saber para invertir en real estate. ¿Qué hace una compañía de título? ¿Por qué su trabajo es tan importante? ¿Qué es lo que tú debes saber? Todas las preguntas que tú debes tener y saber acerca de una compañía de título en este video, en esta entrevista con Jamie Ellis, las vas a aprender. Homero y yo nos sentamos con Jamie. Jamie habla inglés. Le pusimos subtítulos a esta conversación porque creemos que es extremadamente importante que tú como inversionista te asocies con las personas correctas, sepas cómo identificar una compañía de título que te va a ayudar a hacer dinero. Así que esa es nuestra conversación con Jamie Ellis. Jamie, so what's a title company? What's its role in a real estate transaction? Let's start there.
Well, our role is to be a neutral third party between the parties of a contract. If there's a contract, if there's a refinance, we're still a neutral party between the lender and the borrower. We're just here to get clear title for what's being requested by whichever party. When we receive an order to open title via contract, title request, working with investors, we will get unstandard contracts. We get it all the time. But what we do is we send it to our examination department and they research title. Who is the owner of this property? Are there liens against this property? Is there something we need to know? Besides property records, we also do name searches. We look for bankruptcies. We look for child support issues. Anything out there, we try to research it. And hopefully we can find everything, because even our best researchers, there's some stuff that is not filed correctly or that can be missed for various reasons.
Okay. And why is that important? Why is that research important? Because we've had some people that are like, hey, can I buy a house? I want to buy a property. Why do I have to do it through a title company? Why is that work important?
Well, when you're purchasing a property, it is a huge investment. I mean, I know some people have bought properties for, $2,000, $3,000. You still want to protect that investment, even with minimal search. You don't want to waste your money because something later on, what if you weren't working with a seller? Or what if there were multiple sellers and you only worked with one? What if it was a complete stranger impersonating the seller? Because especially on raw land, title companies are seeing that. We're seeing it very often. We're hearing about it often from our underwriters. We want to make sure if you're purchasing a property that there's not an existing lien that you're unaware of now, because if you purchase that property, it's now your lien. Right. So besides paying what you're paying for the property, now you're going to have somebody else's debt to take care of. And that's what you want to protect yourself from.
Okay. Awesome. Now, for an investor, let's say they're buying a off-market property. Mm-hmm. What's the role of a title company in buying a property for an investment?
We do the same thing no matter what. We are there to make sure that investor, for their investment, is getting clear title. What we see as a title company, usually when you're getting an investment property, there are more issues that can be found when we do our title search. Deceased people, outstanding tax liens, weed liens, maybe payoffs that if heirs are trying to sell the property that they are completely unaware of. Maybe mom and dad took out a home equity loan, never told their kids, which
happens all the time.
Happens all the time. And then, or kids have inherited and like individually, and now one of the siblings has a child support lien. Guess what that has to, we see that a lot too. So now that has to be cleared, because typically in investment, it's a distressed property, which will also normally equal distressed title.
Right.
So you want somebody to be able to research that and know how to address those problems, help walk sellers through it. We can't always fix everything just on our own, especially when there's certain judgments listed, but we can walk them through it. Like, this is what you need to do. You need to reach out to this attorney. This is what you need to ask. And that's what my company, that's what we do. We are experienced in all those problems that could arise because we see it often.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at somebody, signs a contract on an off-market property, and typically we see, like you said, most of the times we're able to buy properties at, below market value because there is typically issues or things that need to be resolved in title, and a lot of times certain sellers obviously have no clue how to go about that, and sometimes certain title companies that maybe don't deal with a lot of the liens or certain things, just make it a little bit more challenging. So I think it's very, very important. I mean, for myself, based on my experience when I first got started, I started working with a title company that, somebody referred me over, and they just said, this is just who we use, but they were doing mostly retail sales. And I started, wholesaling. As many of you guys know, I started my career doing wholesaling. And I remember there was one property in particular where it was a foreclosure, and it was a probate situation, right? And unfortunately, there was actually a series of deaths in the family. Like, literally, it was like every I think the mother had 2 brothers and a sister, and they all passed away, and there was only one person, and it was a little awkward sometimes for the title company when you see certain things that is just like, this is just sometimes too much of a coincidence. But they were just a little, I guess you could say, inexperienced, and it could cost you money because sometimes we're on a timeline, right, when we're looking at these transactions, especially if it's in a pre-foreclosure. So it's very, very important to deal with a title company that is familiar with, these types of transactions.
Yeah, and you were mentioning about a wholesale deal. So can you walk us through the role of a title company in a wholesale deal?
It's the same way, but we do keep, say, assignments. So for wholesaling on an assignment of contract, we do keep it private between each party. So we're not going to disclose to the seller the assignment fee. We keep it, what you're doing on your end, private, but we also keep what the seller's making. Nobody knows what the seller's making on it.
Right.
So we want to keep that private for them. Because since I do work with so many investors, I have seen investors, if they find out from the seller, they try to then get them down on the price, when in reality it was a fair price to them. So we want to protect all parties in the situation. But we do know how to handle it. I have contracts transferred to me quite often because it's just a basic assignment of contract, and they may not another title company may not understand it, how to do it, or if there's hard money lenders with wholesaling, which happens quite often, and how to work with those private money lenders. Call them hard money, private lenders, because they sometimes do stuff out of the ordinary. How do we get to make sure we're in Texas Department of Insurance guidelines, our underwriters? How do we do it and make everybody happy? So that's what our goal is here, to make everybody happy and do it the right way.
Yeah.
And what makes a title company investor friendly? Because Homero was talking, he was dealing at first with a title company that was very focused on retail. They did not know how to do certain things that an investor wants. So what are the things that an investor-friendly title company knows how to do and how to handle? One
of the biggest things is time is of the essence. When you're dealing with distressed properties, when there's foreclosures happening, when there's problems on title, you focus in on it and you get it done quickly. You don't wait till a week before closing to start staring at that title commitment. What do we need to do? No, the moment that title commitment is issued, we start immediately. And when you're not experienced in dealing with the distressed title often, you do wait till the last minute.
Okay.
I've seen them where like, oh, now we're going to start trying to get these various payoffs, child support liens, tax liens. No, you have to do that up front the moment. So we don't wait. It's immediately. We also ask sellers in the beginning, is there anything you are aware of? You know, what do you need to tell us so we can start working on it? And what do we need to look out for? Even if, because there could be stuff they know about that's not recorded. Is everybody asking that question? I don't see it. There's several great title companies in our area. I know several great escrow officers. But you also have a lot of new and inexperienced. Doesn't mean that they can't solve the issue, but have they gone through the steps
Comes
before?
with experience.
Yeah. And how to do it quickly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's really similar to a real estate agent, right? I mean, somebody that just got their license is going to have a different experience and not be aware of certain things versus somebody that's been in the business for several years and has gone through, you know, hundreds of transactions or whatnot.
Right. And that's great. And that's another thing with new realtors, new investors. It's great to partner with a title company that we see these problems so we can help them look great in the process.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can take, you know, a few minutes to kind of explain a little bit and help people understand, like, you know, because I know if you're looking at this and you're just getting started, you're like, you know, there's some terms thrown around. I don't even know what that means. Right. So I think that we can go to, you know, the basics. Somebody signs an agreement, somebody signs a contract, they send it to your title company and you guys start doing your work. What is a title commitment and what's typically on that title commitment and why is it so important for, you know, buyers or sellers to look at?
Okay, title commitment is going to show the property that you're purchasing. We want to make sure if you're buying this, especially when you get out into the country, is what's on that title commitment? Is that what the acreage, is that what you're expecting? Is this the land or is it only a portion of it? Who is vested currently on title? Is that the person that we're all talking to? Is this really that person? Or if it's an heir where it's like an estate situation, are they related? Like, how are they related? So at least we can start. It's like an onion. You peel back all these layers and you can find more information. But that's the first thing you want to look at is who is currently in title. That's our starting point. And then is this the right property that you gave us the contract for? We've had people incorrectly put something on the contract as the address and it was just incorrect. We pull title and they're like, oh wait, that's not it. I'm like, okay, we'll start over now because people will put wrong addresses and not often, but I've seen it happen. Right. Schedule B, those are going to be all of our exceptions. If there's an HOA, so all those restrictions for the HOA, we can't remove them. Right. When you're buying this property, you're taking it with all those restrictions. There's nothing we can do about it. Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. When it comes to other types of investment transactions, let's say notes investments, or let's say you're selling your fix and flip, right? Which is on the seller part of the investment. So can you guide us through, okay, so what's a role in those kind of scenarios?
So on a flip, so if you're purchasing to remodel and rehab and resell, it's great to work with that title company that you closed with because we have that information where we can easily, they don't have to, you know, start completely over from scratch. We can see all the items that we've already done to clear title because if you send it to another title company, they may question like, oh, how did they do this? How did they do that? Because it's going to be in that title company's file.
Right.
There's certain things that just aren't recorded that it's just, it makes it faster, especially if you're wanting to do it quickly. Right.
One thing I really want to touch on before I forget, because, you know, this thought is, you know, I know that I learned this about why it's important to use a title company. For example, let's say you buy a property in January and you're planning to keep it as a rental and you're going to refinance. You know, what's a benefit from somebody to being able to refinance within that same 12 months, and especially with the same company? Is there a benefit on the, you know, title policy?
You're referencing an R8 credit. Right. So wait. We would love, if somebody's going to purchase and refinance, we would love them to refinance with us. Right. But R8 credit that is put there by TDI.
Right.
So if you close at another title company, you actually still get a credit.
Right.
So for the first 2 years, you get half off of that lender's
Right.
title policy because the new lender wants a new loan title policy.
Right.
But it is great, but they already have a lot of this stuff. If you had a survey, we already
Right.
have it on file. You don't have to dig it up. You don't have to find it. And working with a consistent title company, they know how you work.
Right.
You know, like, do you have to bring wiring instructions in every time? We can keep stuff on file in templates in our bank. You don't have to, we know how to get a hold of you. You know, we know which email is preferred. If we need a text, if there's urgency, we can reach out. We feel comfortable reaching out when there's an urgent situation.
Right. Okay. Awesome. We've had some people come to us, and one of the things that we always tell them is title insurance is a must when you're purchasing a property. Sometimes, you know, and we tell them why it's so important, right? But since we have you here, why don't you tell us first what title insurance is and why is it so important in a transaction?
So title insurance, you're insuring the ownership and clear title of the property that you are purchasing. You want to, how we talked about earlier, you don't want other people to be on title that you're unaware of. You don't want liens, HOA liens, payoffs, undisclosed heirs. You want to make sure you fully own that property so somebody can't come knock on that door and then you're out a lot of money, you know, or even, you know, like you can be out quite a bit of money. You want to make sure that that's all been cleared because however honest somebody may be selling their home, you could come across something where they're not being truthful or they're unaware of something. So you want to protect that investment, especially when you go to resell, because I have seen investors purchase properties. Oh, we did it, you know, we just did it through an attorney. It was simple. And then find out everything was done incorrectly because they didn't research title. They went to an attorney and said, I want a deed. So that's what they do. They're not there to argue that you're not the rightful owner. They will just do a deed for you. I've seen handwritten deeds recorded in property records too. And I've seen a lot, but you want to make sure you're spending a lot of money, regardless if you're spending $5,000 for a little piece of property, $400,000 for a home, or more. You want to make sure that there's not going to be additional cost to it. You know, people worry about an AC going out. Well, what about if there's like a second lien to a property? You know, that's a little bit more than an AC going out. So you want to make sure that's protected. And when you get an owner's title policy, that protects you against those past liens before ownership and past ownership claims before you bought that property. And it's good the entire time you own that property. So 10 years down the road, somebody is saying that there's an issue, that title policy is still good. Unlike our homeowner's insurance or car insurance, we have to constantly pay every month
Pay
and
one
renew.
time.
Yes. So this is the one-time pay.
All right. So it's a clean slate from when you buy the house.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I mean, just like Jamie said, I mean, we're spending, you know, especially as investors, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars renovating the property. Why wouldn't you want to get and insure title insurance? You know, it's a little silly not to get it, right? So.
Yeah. And are there different types of title insurance, or is it pretty standard? How does it work?
So the cost is going to be the same. Whichever title company you go to, there's Texas Department of Insurance. They dictate how much this all is. Owner's title insurance, it's based on the coverage amount. Same with the lender's title policy. There's also construction binders. So if you're just doing a short little loan and the lender wants to be protected and you're going to refinance it within a year, so it's called a binder. But those are the items that are in place for it. And if you're transferring ownership from one heir to the next, you can also get title insurance. Even if money is not exchanging hands, you can come to a title company and make sure it's all done correctly, and you walk away with that title insurance policy to make sure that there's no hiccups moving forward. Even if if one heir is not selling, if they're not actually exchanging money.
Okay. Awesome.
I think, you know, we can talk about, you know, because people sometimes don't really understand, like you said, you know, people may be telling you, you know, everything that they know truthfully. However, you know, the title insurance secures the chain of title, right? Because they might have bought the property from Billy down the road that owned it for, you know, 20 years. However, you don't know previously to that what happened, right? If, you know, there was, you know, a deed, however, there might be another party that had an interest in it, such as an heir, right?
Or a spouse.
A spouse, right? I mean, yeah. Actually, since you mentioned that, why don't we go over that a little bit? Is we're in Texas, right? So I guess we can talk about Texas, but what are the laws here in Texas for somebody that, you know, bought a property before they're married, and then, you know, let's talk about that for a sec.
So it is a gray area. Attorneys will see it one way, title companies. So I'll say how title companies see it, because I'm also not an attorney.
Right.
So if you own a property before marriage, if it's inherited property, you're pretty much protected, but it could be addressed if somebody's going through a divorce. I've seen attorneys are showing divorce decrees where people still have received some funds, even on inherited, through a divorce if they lived there long enough, and so forth. But when you purchase a property, even single, and you move somebody in as a homestead property, they have community interest. Right. What that community interest is, it's that needs to be determined. Right. So if it's going through a divorce, the attorneys would need to figure out what portion of interest that they own. If they go to sell, we want that spouse now to sign, even though they weren't on that original deed, because they could have community interest. And to do insurance, we are ensuring that nobody else has any type of claim. Yeah. So that's why we would want a spouse to sign.
Okay. Awesome. What are the fees and what's the cost of working with a title company?
So the main thing is the title insurance policy. Right. So that is, once again, standard. It's dictated by the Texas Department of Insurance. They tell us what to charge. There's also an escrow fee. That's what's paying the title company to work the file. All the other fees, like recording fees, tax certificate fees, overnight fees, those are pass-through fees. Right. That's not something we are making.
Yeah, it's FedEx and, you know.
FedEx, it's Collin County recording. It's the recording office. It's e-recording fees, property tax certificates. We're paying a tax certificate company to certify taxes are due. If they are due, then we pay them. Right. We also collect on behalf of lenders, any of their lender fees. We also collect for realtors their commission, and then we pay it out. But what the title company is making is going to be the title insurance, even though that is split with underwriters, and then that closing escrow fee. All the other fees are being paid to other parties.
Okay, awesome. Let's talk about timeline. All right. So, you know, obviously every single transaction is different. Every single property has its own challenges, but is there like an average that you can think of, you know, this is usually how long it takes for us to do the title work for a property? To do the title work, there's different things that are done. So we research title. Right. If it's a lot and block property in a platted neighborhood, you're looking at 2 to 3 days at the most. We can do rushes on items like that. When it's meets and bounds, it takes further investigation. I've seen it take from 4 days to 15 days. It depends on the market, though. Right now we are slower, so it's faster because there's not as many being researched. Right. But in order to close, I personally, and I'm sure other title companies can too, I've closed a property in 24 hours. We get the contract, we get it, title is clear. So, you know, we love that. Right. Or we can get a payoff immediately. Right. We can close the following day. Yeah. With cash. If there's a lender involved, that's different because we also have to deal with the lender's timeline. Most closings take about 30 days because that's the closing day, the lender needing to do all the stuff they need to do. But if it's cash, we can do it fairly quickly if title is clear. If not, it really depends what the issues are on title and how long it will take to close. Antes de continuar con nuestra conversación con Jamie, solo te quiero decir que si estás interesado en incursionar al mundo de real estate y no tienes una idea de cómo empezar, nosotros tenemos un curso gratis de introducción a real estate. El mundo de real estate puede ser tan amplio que a veces se vuelve confuso. Este curso lo que hace es que te enseña cómo dar tus primeros pasos para que después de tomar este curso tú sepas cómo funciona el mundo de invertir en en real estate y cómo tú puedes empezar. Así que si estás buscando recursos para meterte al mundo de real estate, este curso gratis es el mejor curso para tomar tus primeros pasos. De nuevo, es completamente gratis. El enlace está abajo en la descripción de este video. Continuemos con nuestra conversación con Jamie. And what are the most common, most common issues and issues that are the hardest for or take the longest to resolve?
The hardest issues, because we can't resolve them on our own, is if people have passed away and any of the heirs are minors. It must go through the courts because somebody has to be assigned as a guardian to those heirs, and they'll need to sign off at closing. The guardian would not the minors.
Right.
Yeah, I had a personal experience with the closing. It was a foreclosure, and it was two brothers. Brother unfortunately passed away, but had a minor. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we had to go through a process through Collin County, and that took a few months to get that resolved, just because, like you said, they had to get an appointed guardian. And
Collin County's faster than some of the other counties.
Yeah.
But you also have to figure out, is any of the family, are they going to fight? Are they arguing over money?
Right.
If everybody gets along and everybody's satisfied, it makes it much easier. Mm-hmm. But we all know that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially when there's a highly discounted investment property that there's someone that passed away and there's a bunch of heirs.
Yeah.
Right. Anytime anybody sees dollar signs, regardless of how they felt about each other before, like a mom or dad died, it can change everything, and it can get very ugly, even though it's very disheartening to see that. But
have you seen, or personally, have you witnessed transactions fall apart on the closing table because of issues like that?
Not at the closing table. I did almost have a fight at the closing table, and it was over a penny.
No way.
I may have not handled it the best way, but I actually physically brought a penny in and gave it to the one brother. I was like, here you go. We are not fighting.
Was it one of my files?
It actually was not. It was a traditional, it was one that was not an investment property. Right. It was listed in MLS. And
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
But everybody was happy. They all got equal amounts at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's just so many emotions,
that it was not about money. There was a lot of personal thing going on before that. Okay. So those are, usually things that take the longest to resolve or things that are kind of like out of your control. So what are some of the things that the title company actually can resolve or can help fix? So like the most common ones.
If there's an abstracted judgment. Okay. So let's say, sometimes we work with so many law firms that we can, if it's their homestead property, we can get a partial release of lien fairly easily. We've had some people fight it. Some attorneys are like, I'm not doing it. So that can take up to 30 days. So we can get an attorney to send a letter if it's their homestead property. If it's not, then we get payoffs and releases. Those are fairly simple to get. Child support liens, actually fairly simple to get too. We just need to get a payoff, and then we'll work with getting that release of lien for that property. Affidavit of heirships, if somebody died without a will and say it's been 2 years and it's straightforward, we can have our law firm prepare an affidavit of heirship based on a series of questions they ask the sellers, so we can get that done. I've seen that take as quickly as a week. But when we're doing that, we also have to have a MERP form signed, just making sure nobody's owed anything. We have personal contacts in that office, so we can usually get that turned around in 24 hours. Not always, but we can. So it's stuff like that we can usually move more quickly than other people can.
I was going to say, I think on behalf of Jamie and a lot of title companies out there, they'll be excited to kind of hear this, right? I think, especially for newer investors, there's a misunderstanding. It is not the title company's responsibility to clear things on the title commitment, and do certain things that I think a lot of, especially newer investors, think. There's a misunderstanding that, hey, I send my contract to the title company, they're just going to go take care of everything and it's their responsibility to take care of everything, when it's actually not. They're going to provide the information needed. However, a lot of times, more times than not, it's on us as investors or a seller, buyer, to be able to go after and get payoffs or certain things. Sometimes you guys are able to assist on some of those things, but it is not your responsibility or the title company to clear, right? Those.
Right. We need those items cleared and issued in order to issue title insurance. You are correct. But in our industry, we do a lot of hand holding. So we walk people through and we keep nudging them along. Sometimes you have heirs that, they're going through so many emotions. Right. Some are okay. Some are still struggling with the death of whoever passed away. And we kind of move them along, so because they want to do it, but they're emotionally stunted at that moment. So we try to do the hand holding, try to make it as easy as possible for them. But you are correct.
I'm just
you are correct.
Yeah, I'm just referring to, there's only so much you guys can do. And, I will say firsthand, we're very fortunate to have found you guys, and what you guys do is invaluable because you're able to help us so much. But whenever we can, we try to do the things on our part. So I think some of those things, we can talk about is just having the right expectation and trying to do the basic things that'll help out so much, kind of like seller information sheet, right? Like
yes, because I do work with so many investors, even realtors. We use those same information sheets. So and I even have them like, here's a contract and their seller information sheets already filled out. That puts us so far ahead. So when we're researching title and we're seeing if somebody has a common name, we want to see their social security numbers, their date of births, because bankruptcies can come up, child support. Somebody's name is Paul Smith. Do you know how many? I mean, it is outstanding how many bankruptcies are out there for a Paul Smith. So if we have that social security number, date of birth up front, and marital history, it saves a lot of extra time and extra research that is not needed.
Yeah, and I think, that answers kind of the people's question is like, why do they need my social security number? And that's the reason, right? I mean, I'm dealing with a, property where the seller, he has a very common name, right? And I saw that there were some child support liens, and I'm like, you may be mistaken. I mean, I don't think that is him, and I'm going to ask and double check, and sure enough, it's just a common name, and that's why they're wanting that information to be able to just take that off fairly easily once you're able to verify, right?
Right, and we also need that's absolutely correct, but there's also another reason we need that social security number up front is, do they have foreign status?
Right.
Do they have a social security number? Because we do see that quite often. Do we need to collect taxes for the IRS through this closing? Because if not, guess who that tax burden goes to? The new homeowner, that buyer. So we want to make sure that that's clear. And you don't want to wait till the last minute. Even though we have worked with FERPTA specialists that can turn stuff around in just a few days, you want to be upfront with that so we can get that cleared if anything is due.
Okay, awesome. Now, we're talking right now, we're in Texas, so, we know how things work here in Texas. There's some other states, obviously, laws change from state to state. I know there's some other states that, for example, to do a wholesale transaction, it has to go through a lawyer. Some confusion may arise from some people. So what is it? What does a lawyer do? What's it different from a title company? So can you just help us, at least here in our state, help us to do a distinction between the two?
So with a title company, you actually have licensed escrow officers. Some states require everything to go through an attorney. In Texas, you can hire an attorney. We always recommend, if you have any questions regarding that title commitment, what you can and can't do with the property based on those restrictions you've received, reach out to an attorney to consult you. If you're unsure of a contract, reach out to an attorney, because I think a lot of people don't understand they're signing that contract. It's a contract. It's a legal
document.
And most people are just like, oh, never mind. I don't want to do this. I'm like, oh, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Now you need to really consult an attorney. Right. But as an escrow officer, we are licensed and we have to do continuing education. So we can handle the majority of it. But we do have attorneys that prepare deeds, releases, because that's the stuff we don't do.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So what are some things that people are unaware that a title company does? Obviously, we've been talking about title policy, but there's so many other things
Well, we do a lot of research.
Right.
So that's what we're doing. And a lot of people don't always understand that we have to remain this neutral third party.
Right.
So if people start fighting over money, we pause. We're like, we can't start taking sides. Even if we can see clearly, we can see somebody might be at fault. It might be obvious, but we have to remain neutral. So we are here to move the paperwork through and issue the title insurance and move the money around, make sure everybody gets paid.
Yeah, you have to go based off what, obviously what the legal documents in the contract is, right? That's why it's important, like you said, if you're unsure of something or you're not understanding something on the agreement or contract, reach out to that attorney and spend, a few $100s, because it could cost you hundreds of thousands if you're not, you're getting into some sort of agreement or contract that you just don't understand.
Exactly. Or you're buying a property and you plan on doing,
something with it,
building,
barnuminium.
Exactly.
And you can't.
Yeah. And now you're going to be out money because you can't do what you planned. So it might be best to consult an attorney.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually been a lot of people that have, based on experience, bought a piece of land. I'm going to put a mobile home on there, and they spend, $50,000, $70,000, $80,000 cash out of their pocket. Mm-hmm. They're excited. They got the mobile home. All of a sudden they find out there's restrictions and they can't, so they're out.
Right.
And that's why it's so important, right?
Right. Yeah. We've even had somebody purchase a property. I've seen somebody purchase a property and they did not consult an attorney. They didn't even look at the deed restrictions, but they wanted to put a business in a home and they couldn't do it. So you have to look at what the title company is giving you. When we disclose a title commitment, we give you copies of all those restrictions. You may get 10 pages of restrictions. You may get 1,500 pages of restrictions. Right. So that's where a buyer has to do their due diligence themselves to review if they're getting this property and they can do what they're planning on doing with it.
Right.
Okay.
One thing that I wanted to kind of make sure that people understand that is one of the big reasons I feel so comfortable closing at a title company, right, is how escrow works, right? Most people, I get this question all the time when I'm talking to sellers, right? Sometimes they think that we're going to sign a few documents and I'm just going to, grab a briefcase, and give them, $50,000 in cash or whatever. Let's explain a little bit about how escrow works.
So escrow is a holding account. So nobody makes money on it. It's money that comes in and goes out.
Right.
So it is held there, and because we're a disinterested third party, you want a disinterested third party holding any funds in case something arises that is unexpected. If you bring in earnest money and you find out that this person is not the homeowner, and say there's like $10,000. You don't want to give that directly to a seller and then them hold it, and then you're just out because they could be long gone with your money. Right. So, and our escrow accounts, just so everybody's aware, are heavily audited. We go through audits where people dig through our accounts several times a year. Like we just finished a major one with the Texas Department of Insurance, and now we're doing a specific escrow account audit now. Like it started immediately and it goes through the end of February. So it is always being watched. It makes sure that all the money that's coming in is also going out appropriately.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it allows for, if I'm buying a property that the seller doesn't get the money before all the documents are signed. Right. And, that's even something that, we can talk about is when is a transaction properly closed, right? Is it closed when somebody signs the documents?
No. So we get that a lot. We'll have sellers come in that are unaware of the process. They're signing over the deed and they're like, I don't want to sign until I have the money like in my hand. That's part of a title company. We have to have all signatures and all funds. We don't do anything with those documents except for hold them until we have all signatures and money. And then once we disperse those funds as stated in the closing documents, we will then record that deed in property records. And that's what will transfer ownership from one person to the next. But we don't do that until all these other steps have been completed. And we are licensed by the Texas Department of Insurance. They tell us what we can and can't do. Right. So that you want to make sure you go into a title company, and if they are a title company, they're all licensed by the Texas Department of Insurance, so they all have to follow these steps. So you want to make sure that the money's being moved appropriately. Like a buyer, they want to send money. They want to make sure we don't just go ahead and wire all the money over to the seller before all that happens.
Okay.
So we will hold it until all signatures are in hand and all funds.
Okay. Awesome. Now, let's say there's a new investor, Jamie. He is getting into the world of real estate. Obviously, he needs to find the partners that are going to help him create deals, buy houses, sell houses, all that good stuff. He's looking for a title company. You know, as we talked before, there's title companies that are not investor friendly, right? So how can someone, is there a way actually for someone kind of to find, or is there any questions, or what kind of research can someone do in order to find a title company that's going to be able to work for an investor?
So we actually get a lot of cold calling just as a title company. Do you work with investors? And they'll give the phone call to myself or they'll give it to Rochelle. Yes, we work with investors. They'll ask us over a series of questions, but for a new investor, I always recommend talk to the investor community. They know there's tons of Facebook pages, there's groups. Ask other people's experiences, and they're going to tell you. If somebody calls Himero, I'm sure has a few title companies that he's worked with that are investor friendly. I know other title companies myself that are investor friendly. We see the same escrow officers over and over again, just because the community is so small. That you can refer over. If somebody has a certain special need of whatever it may be, if they only want somebody like in the middle of a little neighborhood, they're going to know which office to go to.
Okay.
But talk to other investors. Other investors, you get into the business of investing because you see other investors. You see them succeeding.
Right.
Talk to those investors that you see succeeding, because all the investors that I know are actually willing to talk to them. They don't mind giving advice. Just like if somebody were to call me for advice on stuff, I will walk an escrow officer through something, even if it's nothing that benefits me. I will, if somebody has questions, I'll walk them through it. So look for a good investor that you look up to and ask them questions.
What do you use?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, just like, Jamie, I'll just add a little bit to that is, like you said, you're going to get, you're going to be able to work with somebody based on those referrals. And I think, obviously the title company is important, but more importantly than the title company is the escrow officer, because the way that I see it, the escrow officer really can make or break really kind of the relationship, just because there's a lot of underwriters that a lot of the same title companies use and things of that nature. But a good escrow officer is very, very important. And just like Jamie said, if you talk to another investor, they're going to give you their feedback and let you know, like, hey, you know what? I really like the way that they communicate or their process. So it's important to have obviously the good title company, but you're going to find that by having a really good escrow officer, just like Jamie.
Of course.
Thank you.
Now, before we go, let's say someone bought their house or someone bought a property. They got the title insurance. They went through all the process. Down the road, they find that there's a title issue. So what's the process?
So when they get a title policy, there's actually directions in the title policy stating how to file a claim. But what I usually recommend, first step before you jump into that, reach out to your title company. Is this something, because people can get stuff that's not even legitimate. People are like, hey, I own this property. I had this happen one time to a client and they totally panicked. And they called me before reaching out to the underwriter because they had somebody knocking on their door. They were at the wrong house several times in a row. And it was an error and it was for a home down the street.
Yeah.
So call your title company. If it's something minor, we might be able to just resolve it very easily without it needing to go to the underwriter.
It's just funny because, we have so many stories and that happens all the time with so many things. I mean, I've had inspectors, appraisers show up to the wrong house, you know, and getting calls like, hey, this house isn't opening. I'm like, yeah, you're at the wrong house.
And it still had a lockbox.
Yeah.
Right. But you can go back to your escrow officer and just say, hey, I need advice. And then we could, even if you don't have that title policy in hand, people get paperwork all the time. They throw it away. But we have a digital copy of it. We can forward it to them again. And if they have any concerns, we can, you know, hopefully resolve any of their concerns without it being a true claim. But that's why you have a title policy, because in case there is one of those true claims, you want to be able to file and get it resolved.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Jamie, you are, in case people didn't know, you are in our company the to-go title company escrow officer. So we definitely trust you, and we just thank you for giving us a chance to ask you all these questions. And I'm pretty sure everyone that watches this video is going to get something really, really valuable out of it, right? Homero, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to close with.
No, I mean, I think, you know, we appreciate, you know, your team. We appreciate you, everything that you do for us. You know, it's been pinnacle for us, and, you know, the success that we've had because of, you know, the communication and just so many things. I mean, every, you know, buyer and seller that, you know, closes with you guys is, you know, really excited, really happy. I mean, I know you've probably seen a couple people even crying at the closing table.
I have.
So
some have made me cry too. So yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I appreciate everybody watching. I think we're going to do more of these. I know a lot of the, you know, communities have been asking because they have questions. And if you have a question, go ahead and, you know, put it on the comments.
Leave it down. And just if someone, we're going to leave your information down below.
Perfect.
Someone wants to start a working relationship with you guys. What's the process? I know it's really easy, but why don't you just like walk us?
You can call me. Mm-hmm. Just call me directly. We have Catherine at our front desk. She'll find me in the office. If I walk away from my desk, she'll find me. So if you have questions, reach out to me. You can email if you don't want to talk on the phone. You can start sending questions to me if you want to find out if you want to work with me. We also have Rochelle Ditko in our office. If you want to work with her, we have other escrow officers here too. And besides being an escrow officer in this company, I actually own the company too. So
congratulations on that.
Thank you. So I co-own it with an attorney, Taylor Willingham, who's also in office. So we can get questions answered for anybody that reaches out that needs advice, needs guidance. We can help walk them through anything they need.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, I think that's one of the reasons we really love working with your team, is because sometimes we do have questions, and not all title companies have an attorney in the office that they can just turn around and say, hey, you know, what do you think about this? Or, you know, how can we go about, you know, resolving this? And it's a quick answer, especially with, you know, as you mentioned, time is of the essence in these investment opportunities. So awesome.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jamie.
All right. Thank you.
Gracias a Jamie de WG Title por darnos la oportunidad de aprender. Abajo en la descripción de este video vamos a dejar el enlace para que tú te puedas contactar con Jamie si estás buscando una compañía de título que te ayude a ser un inversionista exitoso en el estado de Texas. De nuevo, si eres nuevo a este canal, suscríbete, vamos a estar dando mucho contenido, síguenos en redes sociales, déjanos un comentario. Gracias por ver este video, todas nuestras redes sociales están aquí abajo, cómo contactarnos está aquí abajo en la descripción, nuestro curso gratis para empezar a invertir en real estate está en los enlaces de abajo. Nos vemos en el siguiente video de Real Estate Hecho Fácil.